And it's so frustrating when you hear those stories about people that live in semi-detached houses getting pinged because neighbours are tested positive and so on, and it's genuinely frustrating. We've done everything we can to put technology in place to protect us. The point of the app is to warn you when you've been near somebody who is tested positive for coronavirus, and to kind of almost take you out of circulation for X number of days until we know that we are safe and that we're not spreading the virus. It's the best way we've got to control the virus. We are looking, you're aware of these pilot schemes that we've got.
I think the whole country is now aware of the pilot schemes that we've got going.
There was some intended marketing that happened over the week, wasn't there? But the point of that is to look at how we can kind of roll off that. And if people are testing every day, and as of today, if people who work for the NHS get pinged by the app, they can follow the same rules as that pilot scheme, test every day and not need to isolate, so long as they're not working with clinically vulnerable people. Everybody's working on A&E and intensive care, that kind of ward. So that's a real step forward to kind of getting us back to normal. We're doing everything we can to use technology to be sensible, to control the virus, and to just hand that responsibility back to people to be sensible, use common sense.
I would wonder, because there's very much two sides to the Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak ping debacle, isn't there? Which is that one side of me thinks, well, if they test negative, in fact, I imagine they've both been double jabbed by now. If they keep testing negative on a daily basis, I would quite like them to be at work and running the country. I wouldn't like them to be isolating somewhere, even though I'm sure they'll say that they're just doing as good a job. It's not the same, is it? But then the other part of me thought the messaging of it was so catastrophically awful. It made it look like it was one rule for them and one rule for us, because there was this kind of mysterious, thing that you could do. There was a pilot scheme out there that a lot of us weren't necessarily aware of. But look, can you explain to me the idea now that if someone relentlessly tests negative for coronavirus, why they should be shutting themselves away, especially if they've been double jabbed?
Yeah, ultimately you've nailed it, Patrick. We're trying to get to a situation where we can do that for everybody, and that's the point of the pilot. And so when people have been double jabbed, as of the 16th of August, we reckon that's when we can start rolling that in. We've always been data-led, we've always been cautious. It was a really regrettable decision to delay the date 5 months. We needed that data, we needed that time to get vaccinated, and that's what we're doing with the 16th of August date. If you've been double jabbed, then you have to just do tests and not do isolation.
Are you worried about the idea now that I think a lot of people simply would not adhere to any kind of lockdown going forward? We've been given a little whifter of freedom now, haven't we? A little snifter, a little stiffener of freedom again now. And okay, all right, okay, it might not look like complete and utter total freedom. We might still have to do the odd test here and there. We might still have to wear the mask every now and again, fine. But if you start removing that now without there being significant increases in to have it.
Yeah, and it's a complicated, really nuanced point to make, because all the treatments, the therapies that we put in, the effect of the vaccine programme, the fact that we've prioritised the vaccines on, and we always have done, on the most vulnerable. We went through those groups of vulnerability right through now to the over 18s. All of that comes together to almost weaken to the point of breaking that chain between infections and hospitalisations and the unfortunate deaths that then occur. And that is severely dampened down now. So there will possibly be an increase in infections, but we know that the most vulnerable people are the most protected now, and the therapies that we have, the treatments that we have, are sort of breaking that chain between hospitalisation and death. So it's a complicated, nuanced political argument to make, and sometimes that doesn't necessarily come across in the cut and thrust of debate, or the limited amount of characters that you get in Twitter.
Well, no, I actually think for most people it's very simple. I don't think it is that nuanced. I think if most people now see that the intensive care wards aren't stacked full of people with coronavirus, and they see that actually hospitals in general aren't stacked full of it, and they see that actually people aren't dropping dead in the street from it all, and the case numbers aren't increasing, etc., 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 I just don't think people are going to have it. But Ben, thank you very much. Ben Everett, Conservative MP for Milton Keynes North. Go into the phones, 0344499 1000. Guy in Tarpley in Cheshire, talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, the cases thing drives me absolutely up the wall. I'll give you an idea. We're actually testing more per head of the population than any other country in the world, which is ridiculous. And if I give you a Western example, last week we were testing 11 times more than Canada does. So it should be hospitalisations and deaths.
Exactly
and
that.
Also, people they're putting people down as COVID. They're not dying as COVID. They're going to the hospital for something else. It's ridiculous. And you're destroying the economy and people's livelihoods for it. I mean, I work in the hospitality industry. He's absolutely been wrecked for it.
Absolutely. And now we're also doing it again with the whole track and trace issue, aren't we? Where, like I've said before, someone 3 doors down might have brushed up next to someone who's got COVID. They can be negative. They're isolating. You're isolating. We're all having one giant isolation fest, aren't we? But anyway, thank you very, very much, Guy. Rocking and rolling here on my first drive show. And you are indeed the first caller. First of many, I'm absolutely sure. Guy from Tarpley in Cheshire, near my neck of the woods as well. That keep it local. Right, when we come back, it's are going to be going live to Boris Johnson's press conference, so there'll be a lot of that going about. We are going to be doing our political panel, of course, as well. We are going to be talking about the news today that kids might have to be vaccinated if they want any kind of normality in their lives. So we're doing a lot of the COVID stuff, all right? But when we come back, we're going to be doing a big debate, a punch-up of epic proportions between the one, the only Calvin Robinson and John Barnes as well. Is the term white privilege divisive? Patrick Christie's Talk Radio.
Talk Radio. Half hour.
Of his heavenly father, but it is his earthly father, Paul Smith, that was a huge source of inspiration in his career.
To continue to do it as long as I have, I think a lot of that has to do with my dad, honestly.
Now a father of 5 and grandfather of 16, Smith is honoring his father with a book called The Way of the Father, recounting how his father sacrificed so much, including giving up a promising baseball career to provide for his family. But it was his father's faith that inspired his son to not only pursue a music career, but to use it as a way to honor God.
He was the kindest man I ever known. He had to be my dad. So he taught me a lot of what God's like.
To hear more, go to Lighthouse Faith Podcast at foxnews.com. For Fox on Faith, Lauren Green, Fox News.
This is Fox News Talk.
Headline Rewind.
1977. Criminal Gary Gilmore.
I simply accepted a sentence that was given to me. I've accepted sentences all my life. By an affirmative vote of a majority of...
Mr. Speaker, through our approach, we are helping to get international travel back on its feet. Fully vaccinated people are now able to travel without isolation to the vast majority of countries in the world. But, Mr. Speaker, we will never hesitate to take action quickly where it's necessary to protect our vaccine rollout.
During the urgent question in the Commons, MPs were also advised by Speaker Sir Lindsay Hoyle to continue wearing face coverings and not push the limits for the sake of it. Andrew Lloyd Webber says Freedom Day has turned into Closure Day after cancelling tonight's performance of his West End show Cinderella. In a statement, he says the government's isolation rules are a blunt instrument, which means the show can't go ahead as planned. He also says his sadness for all involved and the wider industry is impossible to put into words. A look at the weather. The hot weather is continuing with temperatures peaking in the low 30s for the southeast, but it will be cloudier in the south and feeling cooler in Scotland.
Talk Radio is now available to watch 24 hours.
follows Peter in the big city where he takes his mischievous reputation to heart. It includes a moral of not letting anyone tell you who you are, which James says is important for audiences of all ages.
At one point, if you keep telling your child, like they tell Peter, that you're naughty and you're mischievous and you're bad, we as humans, and particularly children, go, okay, well, that's who I am then, and that's who I'll be. The great thing about this film is that it really teaches, well, you're going to make mistakes. And the mistake isn't the thing, it's who you are after that mistake.
Ashley Dvorkin, Fox News.
It's the morning show that overslept. Fox Across America with Jimmy Fallon.
Biden is playing up white supremacy and ignoring inner city violence in Chicago because he's setting up the country for a new bill. It'll be called End Racism, and you'll look bad for voting against it. But at the end of the day, it'll cost you $8 trillion, but it'll do absolutely positively nothing to help the black community.
Weekdays, noon to 3 p.m. Eastern. Listen live or get the podcast now at foxacrossamerica.com.
The altar of wokedom, right, for things that our ancestors may or may not. The school system, from almost kind of crash to college, as it were, are working class white boys and girls, actually, but especially boys. So where's the white privilege there? Well, I just thought, now that a new report has come out about it from the UK's Equality Watchdog, the Equality and Human Rights Commission chairwoman, Baroness Faulkner of Marlborough. Apparently you get to choose your own area. Baroness Law, so I would be talk, I suppose. On the line right now, and joining us on YouTube as well, is Calvin Robinson, Conservative commentator, and John Barnes, former England footballer. Two national treasures join me. Thank you very much. Now, both of you, I hope, know the drill by now. This is our phone show, so you each get 60 seconds uninterrupted to make your initial case, and then let's get stuck into the wider debate. So, Calvin, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay, my good man. Calvin Robinson, Conservative commentator. Your 60 seconds starts now. Does white privilege exist? Is it divisive?
I want to use the first 5 seconds to say congratulations on your new smart country there. It is divisive because we're splitting people up based on their skin colour. And as we know in this country, we are tolerant, we're inclusive, we've spent a lot of time building progress in race relations, and all this white privilege stuff is building us backwards, it's taking us backwards. It's saying that our skin colour, our inequality can't change, are more important than everything else. Class, geography, wealth, family structure, family background, all of these things have much more of an influence on your life chances in this country than the colour of your skin does. And people who say otherwise are race baiting and race hustling. And that's what's happening. They're trying to divide us. You know, telling young working class white boys from the coastal areas and from up north that have very few chances in life, telling them that they have white privilege is an insult. It's disgusting. And just to suggest that people have privilege based on their skin colour doesn't work. To tell young black kids that they're held back or they're not going to succeed in life because, again, of their skin colour is racist. And most of these people are well-intentioned, but they're getting it completely wrong. It's all upside down. We should tell it all.
Oh, there you are. That's our deeply insensitive boxing bell, which means your 60 seconds is indeed up. John, I'm going to throw over to you now. Thank you very much, John. John Barnes here, former England footballer. Look, what's the news today is that the term white privilege is deemed divisive. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, it does exist. White working class people are disenfranchised, they are exploited, but not because they're white. When you have somebody who's being stopped because of the color of their skin, they're black. So we're not saying that white working class people are privileged, but one of the lack of privilege that they have is not because they're white. So therefore, when we talk about being stopped by the police, or you talk about when you go into a shop, someone's going to follow you around, white people don't experience that. So therefore, we're not talking about white working class people being privileged, but the lack of privilege has nothing to do with their color. Whereas the lack of privilege that a lot of black people go through, in things I just mentioned, is because they're black. So being white, as I say, have the hardest in your life, be working class, geography, northern, accents that you actually have, they are real disadvantages that you have, but being white is not one of the disadvantages, whereas being black. So that is why I don't like to use superior black people as an example, rich black people as an example of they are.
All right, John, there's rules, John. There's rules, John. Okay. Right. All right. When we come back to you, I'm going to go back to you right now, John. Look, one of the upshots of this statement is that, okay, it's all very well and good saying that white privilege exists or whatever. What they're saying is let's move away from that, because if you're teaching kids that they've got white privilege, it can be divisive. What we should do is teach everyone instead, about the They're right. About equality, about diversity. Is that not better than talking to kids in schools about whether or not they're
when they go out into the world and they see it doesn't exist, what do you do then? When you teach them that everything's equal and they go and they see that there are certain people being treated differently because of the color of their skin, and they're being taught that it doesn't exist, how is that going to serve them? So therefore, let's be honest about what goes on. Yes, we all like to believe that the world is equal, but it's not. So therefore, white working class kids are also disenfranchised and exploited, but not because of their race. And when people talk about the fact that they would say it's normal, you know, being stopped by the police or when you go into a shop, not being followed, being pushed.
Everything to do with the fact that the market's down almost 1,000 points today, because Los Angeles County feels as though, even though I think 70 to 80% of Los Angeles County is vaccinated, because cases are going up, and 97% of all the cases are the unvaccinated. Now they got to make everyone wear a mask indoors. Julie's listening to WRCN in St. Louis, Maryland. Hey, Julie.
Hey, St. Louis, Missouri.
Missouri, my fault.
That's okay. Hey, I'm not convinced that all the complaining by the media and the administration of the unvaccinated is benevolent. I think that, like everything else, it's somewhat political. I think they're using this to try to paint what they say are unvaccinated Republicans as dumb. If you look at the data, even the city of St. Louis has a very low vaccination rate, which is Democrat by far. So the media is casting it as Republicans. In Missouri, there's a big hot pocket in southwest Missouri, but they act like there's nothing else, like the rest of the world is vaccinated.
Right, Julie, Julie, take this out. The rising cases in Texas, Florida, California, Missouri, they're pretty much Republican states, right outside California. So I get it. So they want to point that out. But guess where all the reporters are in Florida? They want to show Governor DeSantis to be vulnerable and cavalier and cowboy-like because he has shirts on his website that say "Stop Fauciism" or slogans like that with mugs. I guarantee you, Florida's going to bounce right back. There's some people that would be convinced, okay, maybe I'll get vaccinated. But they're giving freedom to choice, Julie. This is not an issue. I want my president jamming down my throat, even though I got vaccinated. Chris, listening in Orlando. Hey, Chris, you listen to WDBO. Thanks for calling.
Thanks for having me, Brian. So between October and January of 2020, myself and my wife and my children and my parents all contracted COVID.
Okay.
We all had mild symptoms. My kids had no symptoms. I'm currently still unvaccinated and plan to stay so over the near future. So is my wife and my children. But my parents have decided to get vaccinated.
Okay.
They're an elderly group. Now, about a month ago, I had to have a procedure, and so I had to take another COVID test, and I came back positive, but I had absolutely no symptoms. My question is, why did the CDC and the government give any guidance about individuals with antibodies? I mean, there could be 10% of the individuals who are listed as unvaccinated that actually have natural antibodies. And what percentage of that is children who don't really get affected by it?
Exactly. So, Chris, a couple of things that you stumbled on. Number one, you have natural immunity. It's never giving credit. I have no idea why. Maybe it's hard to quantify. Why can't antibody tests be as common as COVID-19 tests? And why can't we get tested on that? Excuse me, sir, we're not sure how a vaccine works with somebody who has the antibodies already. There's a lot of people get very sick from this vaccine, even though it's a couple of days. They might say, well, you don't need it because you're still vaccinated. Now, at the point, now, everyone can get vaccinated. Chris, I'm not going to judge you. There's more of a chance of you being hospitalized of getting it if you never got it before you weren't vaccinated. But you're making your own judgment. I don't know if you got the polio vaccine, the whooping bug vaccine. I don't know if that you were doing in a NASCAR race over the weekend. I have no idea. It's not up to me to decide. So back off. So they say, well, there's too much burden on the healthcare system. There always is. I mean, why do people smoke? When you smoke, you cost the healthcare system so much money. So, okay, you made a decision. Cigarettes are out there. Cigars are out there. You're making a decision. I could judge you if I want, but it doesn't matter. You're making choices. In America, we totally resent having this jammed down our throats. And that's what I'm getting from almost anyone. They think they're going to do this again? Shut down restaurants, spread us out, put 4-year-olds in masks again? Scott in North Carolina. Hey, Scott.
Hello?
Scott, what's on your mind?
This is Matt. Brian?
Matt? Okay, Matt, what's on your mind?
Oh, about what your comment earlier, probably almost an hour ago, about Biden had a bad week.
Yep.
I say he had a bad 6 months, so.
I agree too.
Thanks for the book.
Accused Facebook of killing people, not good. Invites the UN to investigate racism in America. You got to be kidding me. Irresponsible pushes the spending 3 to 3.5 trillion, even though we have sustained inflation of almost 5%. Purposely mislabels the voting in states as almost like the Civil War. That's a flat-out lie. A prosecutor admits that Hunter Biden was not pushed forward with that story or the investigation during the election, even though 8% of the people said they knew nothing about it and would have changed their vote. Admit to working in conjunction with social media to silence unwanted voices. Keep in mind, if they were investigating Don Jr., do you think that any prosecutor would have kept it quiet? Absolutely not. That's a bad week. And he's got 51% approval, 42% disapproval. Trump at this point at 46% approval. Obama had 55%, Bush at 51%. And the next 6 months could be his most difficult. If he does not get something passed on infrastructure, he is going to crater big time. He's going to give them a shot in the Senate and have a huge advantage in the House, which will be tough. Listen, we're going to take, actually, let's take one more call. Let's go to Eric, listen on WDBO. Hey, Eric.
Hey, Brian. I think we could all use some positive news today. I drove from Florida to Colonial Williamsburg. I love to see America from the ground. I took up I-95 both ways, and I had to get fuel quite a bit. And in North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, there were a lot of black people around me in these gas stations, and if I listened to the media, I would have been afraid. I walk in, I buy my coffee. There's people there were so, I don't know if they went out of their way to make me feel comfortable because of the media hype about race relations. I turn around and there's a black man behind me buying an 18-pack of beer, and he's like, "How you doing today, sir?" And I never felt more comfortable around other people. And I think that there's so much money being made, and part of their plan is division of the races, because we all were just standing there minding our own business, buying our product, going home to our family, and it was just so uplifting to be in that kind of environment, because if I would listen to the media, I wouldn't have even gotten out of my car.
I hear you. And the other thing, you know we got to get rid of, Eric? The hyphen altogether. If not, reverse it. American African, American Swede, American Italian. It's got to be America first in our names and in our identities. And the second question would be, where are your parents from? Well, what's your heritage? But now it's heritage first. Enough. We're supposed to be a melting pot. Listen, we'll take a time out, 1-866-408-7669. We have not found out if there's more to know. I believe the answer is yes.
Both sides, all opinions. It's Brian Kilmeade.
Listen up, guys. Can you imagine anything easier than getting food delivered to your door to help you lose weight? Anyone can lose weight with Nutrisystem, that is, for men. Because it's simple. Yeah, we're simple. It's all planned out. You get your breakfast, you get your lunch, you get your dinner, you got some snacks, eat the food, lose the weight. You don't have to worry about cooking. The food is delivered right to your door. You just eat the food, lose the weight. And the food is really good. I tried 3 separate meals. I'm waiting to see one I didn't like. I liked them all. You don't believe me? They even offer a money-back guarantee. It is that EASY. Easy. If you don't like it, they'll give it your money back. What do you have to lose except the weight? Go to Nutrisystem.com/BKS. Act now to get 50% off 2 months of food plus free shipping. Go to Nutrisystem.com/BKS. /BKS. Eat the food, lose the weight. Nutrisystem.com/BKS. Limitations apply. See website for full offer details.
Angie's List is now Angie. Summer is the perfect time to book your next home project. From lawn care to a new patio, Angie makes it simple to connect with pros who can get the job done right. See reviews, upfront pricing, and instantly book hundreds of projects. Plus, when you book and pay through Angie, we'll cover your project up to the full purchase price, plus limited damage protection with our Happiness Guarantee. Check out Angie.com, and for more on the Happiness Guarantee, go to Angie.com/happiness-guarantee.htm.
Hey, Jackie, did the Gomez files come in?
For Lucy's law firm, finding the perfect Spanish-speaking paralegal feels like an unwinnable case.
The case documents are in Spanish. My Espanol is too rusty for this.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. With Indeed Instant Match, we immediately show you quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed meet your sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
Hey, this is Trey Gowdy, host of the Trey Gowdy Podcast. Every Tuesday, you'll hear what's on my mind. Plus, every Thursday, there's a special bonus episode where we answer the questions that are on your mind. Make sure to spend your Tuesdays and Thursdays with Trey. Subscribe now at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts. Hope to see you.
America's listening to Fox News.
The Dean's List with Janice Dean.
A teenager from Omaha who organized a blood drive on behalf of her little sister makes today's Dean's List. Eden Jackson knows how important it is to donate blood because a few months ago, Eden's 6-year-old sister Violet was diagnosed with B-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Part of her treatment at Omaha's Children's Hospital was to receive blood transfusions. Eden's mom, Wendy, says she's thankful that blood was available for Violet and wanted to pay it forward, so she herself gave blood too. Her other daughter, 16-year-old Eden, saw what her sister was going through and wanted to get even more people involved to help others. So she's been organizing community blood drives with the American Red Cross. Her efforts are needed right now because across the U.S. blood supplies are critically low due to the pandemic. Eden's blood drive was a huge success, with many coming out to support the cause. Eden, thank you for raising awareness, and Violet, we're praying for your good health to continue. Janice Dean, Fox News.
Get a front row seat to Turning Point USA's Student Action Summit. Fox Nation is this year's exclusive streaming partner, and we're bringing you all the action live from Tampa, Florida. Watch can't-miss speeches from Jesse Waters, Greg Gutfeld, Judge Janine Pirro, Dan Bongino, Ted Cruz, Donald Trump Jr., and more. Plus, Pete Hegseth and Kayleigh McEnany will recap the biggest moments. Enter promo code SAS to get your 30-day free trial of Fox Nation. America is streaming the Student Action Summit. Streaming now. Sign up at foxnation.com.
And Co, for however long now, when you see slides of doom pumped into your front room on a daily basis, death toll, a rolling death toll figure on your news screen all the time, part of me can really understand why people have been terrified, but that's why I think now it's the job of the government, now it's the job of people who are big name celebrities that you see on your telly all the time, to start deliberately trying to show people that you can get back to normal, because I think it's bad for people's mental health if we continue to think that, our very breath is deadly and any kind of human interaction is bad. I think we have a responsibility from the government and Chris Whitty and co now to help us get back to normal. Jim, thank you very much. Great call. Great to have you on board. Our phone lines are on fire and we are going to keep going to them throughout the show. But indeed, again, very shortly, 03444991000. A couple of big topics to get us rocking and rolling here on Drive on Talk. Firstly, it's Freedom Day. You're going to be boycotting shops and businesses and pubs or whatever that continue to enforce restrictions. Had a great one here, actually, a message that's come in. There's no name on this one as far as I can see it, but thank you very much. I'm a wedding photographer. If I get pinged and have to isolate, I lose my money, but Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak can continue to isolate on full pay. And that's a banging point, isn't it? Even if Sunak and co don't take part in this pilot scheme, and even if they do have to isolate, they're still on absolute wedge, aren't they? But you and I might be a bit skinned. 03444991000. Patrick Christie's Talk Radio. When we come back, more of you.
Across the UK, online, on DAB+, and on your smart speaker.
And for the rest of hospitality, it marks a turning point.
Talk Radio.
Sarah's smiling because Jack the florist is open with her favourite flowers again. Jack's smiling because he's back selling flowers again. Robin's smiling because Jack's back at the wholesalers buying flowers again. All along the high street there are smiles on faces because business is looking up again. And if you're looking to upgrade your van or pickup, now's the time to do it. Take advantage of a £1,000 upgrade saving and 0% APR finance on Ford Acquire. It's 2 promotions in one, and it runs until the 30th of September. We're with you on this journey. Ford Commercial Vehicles. Search Backbone of Britain.
Model exclusions and deposit restrictions may apply.
Amazing offer for Sky Q I have to tell you about. Imagine having all of Sky TV, new originals, and box sets, together with all of Netflix. But listen to this. You get Spotify, YouTube, and catch-up TV like BBC iPlayer. Sky Q has everything you love in one place. It just makes life easy. Oh, and it's way less than you think. Go to sky.com to find out more. Sky Ultimate TV subscription required, terms apply.
At Trade Point, we've big trade-only savings on our bathroom bestsellers. Like the Cavalli Close Couple Toilet was £130, now only £99. Plus, if you've loyalty discount, you'll get this on top. For more trade-only bathroom offers, shop in-store or online at tradepoint.co.uk. Offers end 29th of July.
If you own a business, you know customers are back with all the ways they want to pay.
Tap half on my card, half on my watch.
Do you take 1998 World Cup stickers?
And now, to pay for this coffee, a song.
Macchiato maker! With card machines and online solutions, take any kind of payment quickly and securely. Chocolate sprinkle shaker! Well, almost any kind. Search Barclaycard Business today. We take every payment seriously. The approval of your application depends on financial circumstances and borrowing history. T's and C's apply.
Vodafone customers, fancy an unmissable deal? Get 6 months of Discovery Plus entertainment at no extra cost with Vodafone. Get shocking true crime, paranormal chillers, jaw-dropping reality, and astonishing documentaries. Plus, every unmissable moment of the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 live. To get this offer, visit vodafone.co.uk/Discovery Plus. T's and C's apply. Subscription required. Vodafone pay monthly, UK customers only. After 6 months, the price of $4.99 per month. Order renews monthly unless cancelled.
There are some things that only come alive when they move, and you are one of them. So don't stand still. Move forward with a hybrid car, like a sporty Kia Exceed, or one of our award-winning Kia Niros, or a stylish Sportage, or the Urban Stonic. All of these Kia hybrids come with 0% APR, first 2 services free, and 2 years roadside assistance if you order before the end of August. Move forward and go hybrid with Kia today. Kia, movement that inspires. 0% APR available over 24 months with a minimum 20% deposit. Kia Finance.
Well, like many listeners, my dear tenor friend and I will not be in the Seychelles this year. But more holidays in the UK means, loads of traffic on the roads. Well, Go Compare have already paid out £1 million on their £250 free excess car insurance deal. Or maybe...
Maybe he's been listening, maybe someone, maybe a SPAD or a civil servant has gone, it's freedom day now. Look, don't tell me, I'm just going to take this projector outside and I'm going to jump up and down on it, okay? But before that, we're going to be going to the phones for a bit of you, okay? So hopefully we'll be throwing shortly to Boris Johnson, Jonathan Van Tam, JVT, and a little bit of Patrick Vallance as well, for what will no doubt be an uplifting and in no way doom-mongery, scare-laden press conference. Okay. Right, Colin's on the line. Colin in Cumbria. You can get in touch as well at 3444991000. Colin, what can I do for you?
Oh, well, good afternoon, Patrick. I can't understand. I woke up this morning feeling like a child at Christmas morning and got very disappointed. I went into 3 different shops and I was the only one not wearing a mask.
Right. Did they try and make you wear a mask?
No, they didn't. Okay. Actually, but out of 100 people I seen this morning, in the first from 8 o'clock to 8:30, I was one of 3 people without a mask. I've been to my local Wetherspoons, even people in there are wearing masks. I can't understand where this is coming from.
It's fear. I think it's fear. Yeah, I think it's fear though, Colin, and I think this is where we're at, which is that we've had such a long time of being very scared, haven't we? And but such a long time of only being told the scary stuff as well, you know. And also, let's be honest, there have been times when we've been had lockdown extensions based on figures that were, based on flawed modelling. Now, that's not me saying that. This is fact. It's out there, right? Things like they miscalculated the effectiveness of vaccines, for example, when they shoved us in to the last lockdown. I couldn't hug my grandma at Christmas, but Matt Hancock could snog the face off his top 8, couldn't he? I mean, that was a bit different. But Colin, look, where are you at with this though? Because you essentially you want everyone to rip their masks off? Because it has to be a personal choice, Colin.
Yes, of course, it has to be a personal choice. But I feel sorry for the young ones. Us older ones, I'm 66, as I say, this year. Us older ones, I'm not going to be paying for any of this because if I've got 20 years left of me, I'll be dead. People who's going to be born today will be paying for it for the rest of their lives. And why are the old people telling the young people that they have to have a mask? And this I will never have it. And when I have been in a pub, I've never signed my name or my number. Maybe that's breaking the law. I couldn't care less.
Well, I've got a friend who signs in as Tsar Nicholas II everywhere. And actually, the amount of times Kim Jong-un has arrived at local Wetherspoons near him is just incredible. No one's questioned that once, Colin.
Yeah. Well, I just feel sorry for the young ones. Why don't the elderly wake up to the fact is they have had 2 jabs like I've had and let things just carry on the way they should be. The young ones, I mean, I was in a pub today and a couple of elderly people said, oh, these young ones went to a nightclub at 12 o'clock because the nightclub was open and they're going to spread it all over. Well, if you're not ready for that, you don't come out your house.
Oh, Colin, it's strong. It's strong, and we love a bit of that on Talk Radio. Colin in Cumbria, thank you very much. I'm going to throw over to Long Eaton now. I don't know where that is exactly, but I imagine it's better than in Nuneaton. I don't know if these places are clustered together, but there we are. Simon, how are you?
It's the centre of the universe, Patrick. It's actually Derbyshire.
Lovely stuff. Right, now we've got the geography lesson out of the way, Simon. I understand that your wife... Go on.
Yeah, if I may say, next slide, please.
No, we're up now, everyone. We can't have that. You'll be pleased to know that Whitty's not about today. He's been listening. I think they've booked Whitty, haven't they? But go on, Simon. Track and trace. You want to talk to me about track and trace, yeah?
My wife has been recently she was pinged twice for track and trace. Wouldn't tell her where she's supposedly been in contact with somebody. So I advised her to delete it and said nothing more. She's not had any symptoms or anything. Not had any ill effects.
Sorry, did you say, has she taken a test at all? Does she know that she's not got COVID?
No, she didn't take a test.
Didn't take a test, right.
No, but she's had no symptoms or anything, so all is fine. And that was a month or so ago. So everything's fine. As I say, she's double jabbed. And what I disrespect is people that have been double jabbed are blaming people that won't have the jab because their choice, because they'll spread it to other people. I've mentioned this to you before on a Saturday or a Sunday morning, Patrick. You don't have a vaccine or any other jab to protect other people. You have it to protect you. Now, it either works or it doesn't. Now,
and that's one of the issues that I think was it was a problem for me, the way that they were going on about even if you've had the vaccine and even if you tested negative for COVID, you're still going to have to self-isolate for 10 days or whatever. And I just wondered, well, what's that doing for people who are already on the fence about the vaccine? Maybe they're a bit sceptical about the vaccine. They think, well, hang on a minute, does it work or not? Because if I've been double jabbed, right, surely I should be able to go out and about. Surely I should have coronavirus immunity. I know it's not 100% effective, don't get me wrong, and all this stuff. I'm not trying to push that line. But what I am saying is you need to instill confidence in the vaccine, and presumably that means once you've had it, you should be allowed out and about.
Yeah, and just one very quick thing. It's official figures. It's on the Public Health England website. The majority of people that are in hospital and those that are seriously ill or dying are people that have been double jabbed. And the infection rate. If you think about it, those countries that have had the highest rollout of the vaccine, look at their infection.
Well, look, I personally haven't seen those figures, but it's more out for you to, come on, if you have seen them. Simon, I'm going to let you get going because we've got to throw over very shortly anyway to the press conference with Boris Johnson, JVT to his mate, Patrick Vallance as well. Simon in Long Eaton, which I now know where it is, thank you very much, the centre of the universe. Right, people, a couple of things I want you to watch out for in this, but I've got a bit of a prediction what might happen. Firstly, we hope that just good witty there. There's no next slide, please. But going forward as well, I wonder whether or not you're going to see Boris Johnson, Jonathan Van Tam and Patrick Vallance start rolling the wicket for another lockdown. Just watch out for some stuff that they may or may not say here. I've got a bit of a feeling that we're going to end up hearing stuff like, you enjoy your freedoms too much, we'll take them back off you. And they need to remember that if they abuse their powers too much, we can take that back off them as well, okay? Because we have elections in this country. It would just be nice if there was an opposition to actually vote for at some point. But hey, there we go. Look, this is one of the things that you need to have keep your ears peeled for now, all right? If they start saying things like, well, case numbers would go up, we are going to have to consider we're going to have to consider our withdrawal. What we need to be asking them now, what I hope some of our esteemed award-winning journalists ask them, is, all right then, okay, what's the exact number of deaths, what's the exact number of hospitalisations, and specifically the intensive care hospitalisations that we are going to have before you will consider another lockdown? We cannot just have these phrases wheeled out there. It simply cannot happen. Now, you can actually watch the press conference that's about to take place very shortly, as we understand it, on Talk Radio TV. Download the Talk Radio TV app or go to talkradio.tv for details on how to watch. Another thing I think you should watch out for is what I think is going to happen, because it's happened at almost every single press conference that we've ever seen, haven't we? Where the snivelling media lot, the snivelling media types who, let's be honest, you know, they've never been busier, have they? They've never been more famous, this lot. They're always on your telly every single evening now, holding truth to power, speaking truth to power. All right, well, half of that lot have broken coronavirus restrictions at some point. In fact, I think we can think of a couple of pretty famous ones who have. Now they're there berating a Prime Minister and berating whoever's near him, frankly, at the mere whiff that we might one day be allowed outside of our own homes. It doesn't affect this lot. They're on massive. Now to Boris Johnson, Jonathan Van Tam and Patrick Barrett. Take it away, the Dream Team.
Yes, it sure is. We're coming to you live from the greatest country in the world. It is Fox Across America with Jimmy Fallon, a man who has never accused Facebook of killing anybody. Joe Biden did exactly that on Friday.
I don't remember that ever happening.
But it did, and we're going to discuss it in this hour on a big day for this show. 888-788-9910. You want to chime in, you want to have your voice heard in this audio safe space for cool people where we say every dang day you can be a Republican, you can be a Democrat, just don't be what the Democrats are being. But we begin with a very quick programming note. I am on the television tonight with Greg Gutfeld at 11 p.m. on the Fox News channel. Shout out to them. And congratulations in advance on what'll have to be a huge ratings bounce for them.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
No, but in all honesty, the show has done great when me and Greg are on. I love doing his show. I love every one of you for watching it and trying to make fun of my outfits and all the silly stuff like that. But it has been an absolutely phenomenal hang every single time I've been on the show. So I hope you do check it out, 11 p.m. Eastern Time on the Fox News channel. That, of course, not the big news today. The big news as we get on the air on a Monday is, yes, Fox Across America, yes, our audio safe space for cool people, a show where I am not the star. We are the people like you who love a good faith conversation about issues facing America. Well, us, me, you, our movement has added yet another new affiliate.
Well, we're moving on now.
Though both deaths and hospitalizations, as I say, are sadly rising, these numbers are well within the margins of what our scientists predicted at the outset of the roadmap. And so it is right to proceed cautiously in the way that we are, but it's also right to recognize that this pandemic is far from over. And that's why I'm afraid it is essential to keep up the system of test, trace, and isolate. And I know how frustrating it is for all those who have been affected or pinged, and I want to explain, therefore, that people identified as contacts of cases are at least 5 times more likely to be infected than others. And even if they've been vaccinated, there is a significant risk that they can still pass the disease on. And so, as we go forward, I'm afraid that the continuing sacrifice of this large minority, those of us who are being asked to isolate, remains important to allow the rest of society to get back to something like normality. And I'm afraid that at this stage, it's simply a consequence of living with COVID and of opening up when cases are high in the way that we are. As you know, we'll be moving on August the 16th to a system of testing rather than isolation for those who are double vaccinated. by which time, of course, we hope that the wall of immunity in our country will be even higher. And in the meantime, I want to assure you that we will protect crucial services, including the staffing of our hospitals and our care homes, the supplies of food, water, electricity and medicines, the running of our trains, the protection of our borders, the defence of our realm, by making sure that a very small number of named, fully vaccinated critical workers are able to leave their isolation solely for the work that I have described. But for the vast majority of us, myself included, we do need to stick with the system for now. And of course, the only reason that we're able to open up in this way at all is that we've vaccinated such a large proportion of the population and at such speed. It is phenomenal that every adult in this country has now been offered a first dose. But unfortunately, that does not mean that every person over 18 has yet had a first dose. So far, 96% of over 50s, 83% up the offer in England, but there are still 35% of 18 to 30-year-olds, 3 million people, who are at the moment completely unvaccinated. And then we can all see the enthusiasm of millions of young people to get their jabs. We need even more young adults to receive a protection that is of immense benefit to your family and friends and to yourselves. And so I would remind everybody that some of life's most important pleasures and opportunities are likely to be increasingly dependent on vaccination. There are already countries that require you already to be double jabbed as a condition of quarantine-free travel. And I'm afraid that list seems likely to grow. And we're also concerned, as they are in other countries, by the continuing risk posed by nightclubs. I don't want to have to close nightclubs again, as they have elsewhere. But it does mean nightclubs need to do the socially responsible thing and make use of the NHS COVID pass, which shows proof of vaccination, a recent negative test, or natural immunity as a means of entry. As we said last week, we do reserve the right to mandate certification at any point if it's necessary to reduce transmission. And I should serve notice now that by the end of September, when all over 18s will have had their chance to be double jabbed, we're planning to make full vaccination the condition of entry to nightclubs and other venues where large crowds gather. Proof of a negative test will no longer be enough. Now, let me stress, we want people to be able to take back their freedoms as they can today. We want this country to be able to enjoy the fruits of our massive efforts and of our enormous vaccination campaign. But to do that, we must remain cautious and we must continue to get vaccinated. And that's why we're asking you to come forward and get your jabs now. Thank you all very much. Now I'll ask Patrick to do the slides.
Thank you very much. Can I have the first slide, please? We have high levels of COVID and they are increasing. And this slide shows the number of people testing positive for COVID in the UK from the 1st of September through to now. And you can see the size of the autumn wave, then the winter wave, and then on the right-hand side of the slide, where we are now. So whereas in the winter wave, we were up to around 60,000 people testing positive per day, we are now somewhere up towards 50,000. So we're quite close to the size of the winter wave of infections. And this is going to increase. And step 4 is a big inside mixing step. So it will increase further as we go into step 4. The risks of high prevalence, high numbers of cases, are really 4 major risks. The first, of course, that translates to some extent through to hospitalizations and deaths, which I will talk about more. That's protected by the vaccine, but not completely. The second is, of course, there will be an increased risk of long-term complications, so-called long COVID. The third is that at high levels of infection, as the virus replicates, it makes mistakes, and those mistakes are what cause variants to occur. And the fourth is, because of high levels of infection, you have a high number of people who therefore pinged and off work, and it affects the workforce. So there are four strong reasons for worrying about high infection rates. And a fifth is that the testing process, of course, becomes very stretched at high levels of infection. So we have high levels of infection that are rising and would be expected to continue to rise. Next slide, please. When we look at the number of people in hospital with COVID, it's a somewhat different picture. So the first peak, second peak, you can see clearly, and then on the right-hand side, you can see that the number of people in hospital has increased. To be over 1,000 people per day being hospitalised with COVID because of the increased infections, but the rate should be lower than they have been previously because of the protective effects of vaccination and the real importance of making sure that everybody gets vaccinated. Next slide, please. If you look at the curves of death, then that's even lower, and you can see again the autumn wave and the winter wave with unfortunately large numbers of people who succumbed to COVID infection, and you can see in the dotted line the size of the first peak back to last year. We are seeing an increase in the number of deaths, but at a much, much lower level, but they again will continue to increase as infections increase and will be expected to reach over 100, possibly a lot over 100, but we'll see an increase in deaths over the next few weeks as the infections rise, but at a much lower level again because of the protection of vaccination. Next slide, please. This tries to lay that out in a slightly different way. So the autumn wave is in orange and the current wave is in blue, and the curves for the two waves have just been overlaid. And the axis that goes up is showing you the number of increasing cases or the number of increases in admissions or deaths, and along the bottom is the number of days since the start of the wave. And what you can see is a very close increase, overlap of cases increasing, very similar between the autumn wave and the current wave, and you can see the autumn wave then topped out at slightly lower levels. When you look at admissions, the number of admissions was higher in the autumn wave and went up sooner, and with deaths it went up sooner, is much steeper, and went to much higher levels than we're seeing now. So this again confirms the crucial importance of vaccination in protecting against the effects of the infection, as well as reducing amongst the population the chance of becoming infected. Next slide, please. Even with this more transmissible variant that we have now. In terms of the vaccination profile, the Prime Minister has mentioned this. A large number of people have been vaccinated. Something like 88% of the adult population has had one dose, and 68.5% have had two doses. So large numbers have been vaccinated, but of course it means that large numbers also have not been vaccinated. There's still people in their 20s and 30s who have not yet been vaccinated, and we need to make sure that happens. So the messages are, first, that the number of cases is high and increasing, so that is a risk and we need to be aware of it. Secondly, in order to try to reduce the chance of spreading infection, it's important that we stay cautious, we go very slowly with the opening up, and that people retain that distance and risk appetite not to go into places where you're going to have a high risk of infection, so that we try and keep the levels down. And third, that vaccination is crucial, and that the vaccination, of course, is crucial for all the age groups who are eligible, and it's important that we see the uptake in the younger age groups as well as continued presence of giving vaccines to people who are older who haven't yet been vaccinated. Thank you, Prime Minister.
Thanks very much, Patrick. Just going to put to the public first. Toby from Southern Coalfield.
So I've been studying abroad for much of this last year, which meant that I've been fully vaccinated in Italy rather than the UK. While I have proof of vaccination and an EU Green Pass, I can't get the NHS COVID Pass for events, nor can I travel abroad to amber countries without quarantine. What's been done to help recognise the vaccinated status of people like me?
Toby, I'm going to ask JVT Jonathan Van Tam to address this as well, but obviously we're working with partners around the world to make sure that we understand the efficacy of their vaccines and have mutual recognition for all efficacious vaccines as fast as possible. But JVT, perhaps you could say a bit more.
Yeah. Thanks, Prime Minister. Thanks for the question, Toby. So the point you're making is a perfectly reasonable one, that if you've had a good vaccine in another country, then that vaccine is going to be just as good for you and give you just as much protection as the vaccines we are giving people here in the UK. And there is a great deal of awareness amongst my policy colleagues in government about this, and there's a lot of work going on to sort this out. But it has to be done in a rational, careful way, and it has to be fair for all, and we're working as hard as we can to get there.
Thanks very much, JVT. David from Wiltshire.
Out of all the announced daily COVID cases, what percentage of these have had none, one, or both of their vaccination injections?
Right, that is a very good question. I think sadly the number of COVID cases that have involved somebody who's had 2 vaccinations has been rising, although clearly the results of the vaccines remain very good in the sense that they protect those people very largely against serious illness and death, even if they contract it. But on the exact figures, I wonder whether Patrick, you have something to add there.
Well, in terms of the number of people in hospital who've been double vaccinated, we know it's around 60% of the people being admitted to hospital with COVID have been double vaccinated. And that's not surprising because the vaccines are not 100% effective. They're very, very effective, but not 100%. It's inevitable that those 10% of that very large number remain at risk and therefore will be amongst the people who both catch the infection and end up in hospital. So whilst vaccines are very effective at reducing severe disease, they're also effective at reducing the chance of catching it and reducing the chance of passing it on, but they're slightly less effective at doing that than they are at preventing severe disease. And so what we will see as we get the let's say if everybody over the 18 had taken up the vaccine, then of course anybody who caught it would be double vaccinated. So the answer is that we should expect to see a higher proportion of people in hospital and catching the infection who are double vaccinated. That is inevitable that we will see that because of the the less than 100% efficacy of the vaccines overall.
Thanks very much, Patrick. Let's go to Fergus Wolf, BBC.
Prime Minister, are you effectively giving people an ultimatum? Get vaccinated soon or you'll be denied entry to crowded venues. And to the scientists, how concerned are you for the potential of super spreader events in nightclubs and pubs where there is no social distancing now?
Fergus, I want to make one thing absolutely clear. Young people have been absolutely heroic throughout this pandemic, and they've made enormous sacrifices in their lives, very largely to protect the vulnerable, protect the older generation, to protect the NHS. They faced huge restrictions on their liberties, and I've got boundless admiration for what they've done, the character that they've shown. And we've got to make sure that we allow that younger generation to bounce back as quickly and as fast as we possibly can. I think one thing that would really help would be if we can continue to reduce the time that we're all living under this pandemic, and the best way to do that is if we all get vaccinated as fast as possible. And the offer is there. By today, July the 19th, everybody has had an offer over 18 to get a vaccine. 3 million of the 18 to 30 year old group have yet to take it up. All we're saying is, come on folks, this is it. You won't regret it. It's the right thing to do for you, for your family, and for everybody else. But above all, it's the right thing for you to take back, to help get back the freedoms you love.
I think in terms of the question about super spreading events, and I'll have a go, and then Jonathan may want to add to this. Right the way across the world, we've seen that nightclubs and venues where you've got lots of people indoors, crowded together, are a focus for potential super spreading events. And that has also been seen in terms of what's happened in Holland and Israel, where nightclubs opened and you saw a big increase in cases. So I think here you've got lots of people quite close together. You've got the environment in which spreading becomes easier, and I would expect that with opening of nightclubs we'll continue to see an increase in cases, and we will see outbreaks related to specific nightclubs as well. And that's again why it's so important that everybody comes and gets a vaccine, so that we can reduce the chance of spread and we can reduce the chance of consequences of that spread.
Thanks, Patrick. So I'll just go back to what I've said at this podium more than once before, that the principles of how COVID and other respiratory viruses spread follows the Japanese 3 Cs, which the Japanese government have used to advise their citizens from the outset of this pandemic. C number 1, closed settings where the ventilation is relatively low. C number 2, crowded settings where there are a lot of people per square metre, basically. C number 3, close social contact, if that's the purpose of being there, particularly if it's strangers or people you don't normally mix with. Now, I don't particularly think it's helpful to pick out a particular type of building or a particular type of business. I could create the Japanese 3 Cs by inviting a load of door shut. That would do it. That is the Japanese 3 Cs encapsulated. So those are the things that as scientists we are concerned about, wherever they occur and under whatever circumstances.
Thanks very much. Dan Hewitt, ITV.
Thank you, Prime Minister. You all said the roadmap was cautious but irreversible. With so much uncertainty over how high infection rates and hospitalisations could get, do you concede that is now a promise you can no longer keep, that you may have to at some point reimpose these restrictions later in the year?
Thanks, Dan. And yeah, thanks for asking that, because I want to repeat really what I said last. Has been very clear about that. The only way we can make the roadmap irreversible, Dan, is by continuing to be cautious, and that, I'm afraid, is why we've got to continue with the measures that we are, but continue with the routines that we have, the test, trace, and isolate. But above all, why we've got to continue to focus, as JVT and Patrick have said, on that vaccination campaign and get your jab. Tom Newton-Dunn, Prime Radio.
Thank you, Prime Minister. A question to Sir Patrick and Jonathan Van Tam first. The success of Step 4 would seem to depend on when the peak arrives and when it starts decreasing, at a time which no one really seems to be clear. There have been estimates of mid-August, estimates end of August. Is it right to say that the next crucial date we should all look out for is the beginning of September, when schools start to come back? Because if cases haven't started to decrease by then, we're still rising, then that would have to be the moment you'd need to step in and reduce transmission by imposing restrictions again. And to the Prime Minister, Your announcement just now on mass events, vaccination passports is mandatory for mass events. What other mass events are you thinking about? What about football stadiums? Would they be mandatory there? A lot of enclosed spaces at half-time where you're getting a burger. Up the Emirates, for example, you're very packed in. And if you're going to do this, why not do it now? Why wait till September? Why give 10 weeks to mass spreading? Because nightclubs have already told you they're not going to do this.
Is it Chris or Patrick who's going to go first, please? Sorry.
Well, I'll have a go, and then Jonathan may want to come in as well on this. The timing of the peak is uncertain, as you rightly say, and it varies in the models over August at different times, and it could even be you get a peak and then it goes down, it comes back up again a little bit as the step 4 effects kick in. So that's really quite uncertain. But most of the models are suggesting that there should be a peak and start seeing some sort of either plateau or decrease over August. And at that point, if things continue to increase at the rate they are, and as I said at the outset, there are something like 50,000 or near 50,000 cases per day or positives per day at the moment being detected. With a doubling time of 11 days, you can see that gets to pretty high numbers very quickly, and another doubling time will take you to even higher numbers, of course, that would be really quite worrying. So we would like to see some flattening of this, some decrease in the trajectory, and ideally, as you rightly say, you'd like to see this coming down by September, as return of schools would add another pressure on top of that.
Yeah. Thanks, Patrick. So what I'd really add to that is this huge uncertainty about how high the peak will be, Tom, and how long it's going to take us to get there. But the reason why the modelers tell us there is this uncertainty at the moment is because so much of it is going to be driven by human behaviour over the next 4 to 6 weeks. So really it is kind of in everybody's hands, yours and mine. If we are gradual and cautious and we don't tear the pants out of this just because we're glad to have our full freedoms back, then we will materially affect the size and shape of the remainder of this epidemic curve and where the peak occurs and how big it is. It is literally in the hands of the public in terms of the behaviours, and I would just urge people to be gradual and people to be cautious to the extent possible. That doesn't mean you can't have fun. I was back at the Boston United new stadium on Saturday having a bit of fun. It can be done, but gradually and cautiously, please.
I want to echo that completely. I think JVT has totally summed it up. And just on the point about nightclubs, I don't particularly want to single out any sector or business, Tom, but as I said earlier on, there is evidence from other countries that have had a particular problem with the opening up of nightclubs. So what we're repeating today is we want nightclubs to behave responsibly, use the COVID NHS app. We reserve the right to go to mandation for that if we have to, and we may well want to change to a certification regime for that kind of setting for nightclubs. Once everybody over 18 has had the opportunity to get 2 jabs, which will be by the end of September. And I do think that that's a sensible approach. But on the other hand, we don't want now, as you suggested, simply to close nightclubs or to keep them closed. I don't think that would be the right thing to do. To get back to what I said earlier in the argument, you have to ask yourself, if not now, when? We have the opportunity now, the firebreak of the school holidays, plus we have the risk of opening up in the colder months, and the point of the epidemic at this stage, or the feature of the epidemic at this stage, now that so many people have been vaccinated, is that if you keep on restrictions, all you're really doing, in a way, is not preventing hospitalizations, but you're simply postponing them. So you're back to the if not now, when argument, Tom. It is a difficult judgment, but we have to proceed cautiously in the way that the JBT has, I think, really.
Already tearing the pants. Pub this year. And on a slightly different subject, just while we've got you on the record, very simply, does your 2019 manifesto commitment not to raise national insurance or income tax still stand?
Okay, a lot of good stuff for me there, but I think JBT, you were going first.
Yeah, so I think my question was about beaches, parks and nightclubs, and some of the scenes of crowding, I guess, we've seen in the last few days. So two of the settings you've mentioned are outdoors, with lots of ventilation, with lots of ultraviolet light, and therefore a much, much safer environment in terms of the aerobiology of COVID-19 and indeed other respiratory viruses. And the other one you mentioned is a closed indoor setting, very strongly associated with deliberate close social contact, the consumption of alcohol quite often, and late in the evening. So they are rather different. Am I worried about it? I think I want everybody to go cautiously and gradually, and I think a lot of people in the UK, a lot of ordinary citizens, see the case rates high, see that at the moment, although hospitalisations are increasing, and there are significant parts of the northwest and the northeast of the NHS that would tell you now they're under quite a bit of pressure again from COVID. So citizens are worried about this, and I think they get it. By and large, that it's really important to go slowly and to go gradually at this, and our destiny is very largely in our own hands in two ways: how gradually and cautious we are, and how well
that. And a lot of people already have said, I mean, a vast majority have said they intend to continue wearing masks in indoor spaces where they might come into contact with people. So I think the caution, as Jonathan has said, is there in the way people intend to behave.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Harry, look, on your first point, no, of course, I absolutely didn't think that, and here I am today on Zoom or Teams or whatever brilliant system that it is that we're using. Secondly, you asked about pubs, and I don't want to get, as I said many times before in this pandemic, I don't want to get a situation where people are asked to produce papers to go anywhere to enjoy any of the pleasures that they do. But we've got to make sure that we, and so I certainly don't want to see pubs, passports for